All right. I think we're going to get started. So I want to welcome everybody to this Future of Work Roundtable. My name is David Spiegel. I'm editorial director for CNBC Strategic Content, which includes the TEC. Who's got the sirens?
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all part of the fun. We're talking about distributed workforce. We're all distributed. For the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to have a spirited dialogue, I hope, about distributed networks for the distributed workforce. Let me lay out some ground rules. This conversation is on the record. It's being recorded. So please, again, pop yourself up on camera, join in, participate. Starting now, you can turn your camera on. A reminder to please keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking. It helps reduce some of that background noise. If you have a question and we haven't called on you, please say so in the chat so we can acknowledge you. And then just a little troubleshooting tip with Hopin. Usually the thing that fixes most technical issues is you leave, refresh your browser, come back in. It most of the time fixes things. So one of the great features of our council's programs is that we have these truly world-class sponsors. Those sponsors recognize the incredible talent we convene that you've seen at our session today. They really step up, bring their own top talent to engage with the members here. So with that, I want to invite Mike Katz, EVP of T-Mobile for Business, to say a few words before we kick off our conversation. Mike, thanks for being here.
Hey, David, thank you so much for having me here. And I just want to say on behalf of T-Mobile, I'm really thrilled to welcome everybody to this roundtable discussion. And, look, I don't need to tell everybody that 2020 has been an interesting and challenging year. We've never had something that has so dramatically impacted nearly every single aspect of our lives, and simultaneously for all of us. The impact that that COVID has had it crossed through things in our personal life and our professional life, from schooling at home, like we've all become, homeschool parents, to many of us have picked up COVID pets. I know we've got a new dog in the house. And, some of us, I'm not naming any names, maybe some experimentation with COVID facial hair. And then on the professional side, it's this complete transformation of the way that we work. And it really makes it feel like that we're all in this together. And in some ways, I feel like we've never been more prepared for the challenges that a virtual and distributed remote work environment have created. But in other ways, I think we've all seen technology fall short. We've all been on the calls when somebody's turned into the robot voice, or we hear every third word, or we're sharing broadband with our neighbors. And the interesting thing is this is all happening on the cusp of a generational technology transformation, like 5G. And I think 5G has the promise of addressing many of these work from home challenges, but I still think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. And that's why I'm excited to get this conversation kicked off and do some sharing of the challenges that we're all facing in our organizations, and discuss how we can facilitate and share best practices on how we're going to make progress and improve on this road ahead. So, David, thanks again for having me. I'll turn it back over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Mike, again. And let me hand it over now to Bertha Coombs, CNBC reporter. Again, click share your audio and video to join us in the conversation. I see some of you out there who told us you wanted to participate, so please do. Jacques and I lost the other name, but I know you're out there. So Bertha, over to you to get us started on this conversation about distributed workforce.
Thanks. Obviously, a distributed workforce means people are working in different environments. You'll probably hear my radiator start to kick in now after having heard the ambulance down the street. But I think one of the challenges that we all really think about is people being able to access our systems in a safe way. And I would imagine for those of you who are CISOs or whatever they call it in your organization, this has to be probably the biggest challenge you've ever faced, where you're not just worried about people falling for phishing while they're in the office or maybe on their phone, but now they're on a system that isn't necessarily as safe as what you would like them to have at work. Jacques, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about what the challenges have been like and what you've learned from this process over the last 7 months.
Yeah, absolutely, Bertha. I think one of the first things is, in our business where we make video games, one of the key things is, we have extremely large files and content that we are manipulating. And we basically have to have like data centers in our office because of the size of the content. And when we moved to work from home, it became very challenging shifting multiple terabytes of data across the network. So the capacity constraints when you have thousands of developers working on content and sharing that back and forth works well when the servers are right next to you. But having to do that over VPN might work for them, but you also have thousands of other employees that just need to get stuff done. So that was extremely challenging. I think that showed us that we need to really pivot the model of how we have our network set up to really cope with the new world that we're living in, and having to ship games. It's very important that we hit the dates that we set. So we had to,
well, especially right now when people need those games, because otherwise they don't really have that much more to do.
Absolutely. Call of Duty needs to ship every year on time, every time, right? And that's super important. So that was one of the key things that we basically utilized cloud extensively to offload all of that traffic. But also this notion of when you're in the office, you're secure, right? You have firewalls and all these things. That's totally gone now. The perimeter is somebody's house, and you have to secure that in a way that's meaningful. So we had to really shift and look at how we actually, just rethink everything and do it very quickly. Something that would have taken 2 to 3 years to do, we had to do in a couple of months. And I think everybody's in the same boat where digital transformation has shifted so quickly. It's very exciting times.
Would we be able to do this if we didn't have the SaaS format? If we didn't have things are in the cloud, software as a service, as opposed to? I can't imagine if we had to mail discs to people.
No, I think the clouds really accelerated this and allowed us to have on-demand capacity that would have taken months to set up ourselves. So those things have really accelerated the shift forward.
What does it mean for, someone had asked about the security stack. I think about the fact that it's just in this week alone, the FBI saying that we've had, a handful of hospitals that have all been hacked. And they, in some cases, have paid the ransoms in order to get it unstuck. Is that something that you think is particular to them because they have such legacy systems that it's really hard for them to really have things integrated in the cloud? What are some of the security challenges that you're facing right now?
I think the challenges are very similar across the board for all sectors. I think phishing is, one of the key things that people are getting hit with, and that's generally how these infections occur. Having solid defenses and making sure that you have good backups and good detection capability and remediation and isolation is key. It's one of those things that you don't want ever to happen, and ransomware is certainly a nuisance if it ever occurs. So we need to be vigilant, but we also need to treat each endpoint with the same level of security as you would when you built in the previous world with a perimeter and everything else. Now you're looking more at the zero trust model where any device anywhere has the same level of security, and that's really key going forward.
Have you, I'm just curious, have you guys been fending off attacks at all? I mean, I would think if I were a hacker, trying to get Call of Duty would be one of my top prizes.
Yeah, we get the big thing for us is constant DDoS attacks. You're having huge amounts of different DDoS attacks on a daily and weekly basis that you have to fend off, and some of these attacks become extremely large in the multi-terabit size, and the teams get very good at handling that, but it is still very disruptive, and it's not something that you can just solve very quickly because of the cost of attacking us with a DDoS attack is very low for an attacker, but it's very high to defend. So it's a constant battle that we face. So that would be the big thing in gaming, and that goes across the board with platforms, etc.
I have to imagine, it's an interesting time as well when budget-wise, because on the one hand, obviously not in gaming, you guys are benefiting from more people being at home and wanting more entertainment, but at the same time, it's a time when everything is so much more costly, and yet you must have huge budgetary needs to be able to deploy these new systems to have this workforce be so dispersed.
Yeah, absolutely. I think having to order hundreds and hundreds of laptops mid-March when everybody else was doing that was interesting time. But then if you look at like the other piece of you look at the infrastructure and CDN. I was just on a different chat with Akamai, and they, CDN is key to our business from a content distribution perspective. And with everybody working from home, the network capacity in different countries is hitting the ceiling. So in the daytime, when people are working from home, when we're trying to serve content, like some of our patches and game downloads are extremely big, that contends with capacity in the actual country. So countries across the globe need to scale up capacity to contend with the demands that are created on a daily basis in this environment where everybody was at an office working from there. Now everybody's having video calls from their house. That increases the capacity constraints massively in every country, and we've been contending with that as well and serving our content.
I just want to encourage anyone else who's joined to open up your camera, and please, you join the discussion. This is really a roundtable. It's not so much of a panel or an interview session. So we'd certainly love to hear other folks' thoughts. And if you have some questions that are really much more pointed, certainly would love to hear those as well. You talk about other countries, and I wonder, as an international firm, are you able to utilize that and be able to, switch off and be given that folks in Asia are down when we are up? Are you able to sort of balance that out to be able to have enough capacity? Can you borrow capacity from somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. We load balance all our traffic globally, but in specific countries. So, for example, if we're serving our content, so there's a new release of a game, and people want to download it, we're having to put those downloads out of business hours, to throttle it inside business hours, just because of the absolute networks across Europe, for example, hitting the ceiling in the daytime, and us coming with huge patches in the middle of the day doesn't help. So that is something that we're contending with, and I think everybody else in the gaming space and content space is doing the same. Netflix, for example, etc.
Incredible. There's a question that we had gotten earlier from Jacques Kisten from Sesame Workshop, saying, how are companies that have a long-term multi-cloud hybrid enterprise strategy adapting to the challenges of the ever-changing cybersecurity landscape? Anybody out there want to chime in on that?
Mike, I had thought about, the challenge at the edge with cybersecurity, and that's maybe one of the challenges that 5G presents. The sort of near field complicated. It presents another opportunity for people to hack and get into these systems. I wonder how you guys think of it over there.
Yeah, maybe a challenge, but I think also a lot of opportunities. Yeah, I do think that's one of the big promises that 5G has is moving more of the computing power to the edge to support some of these use cases that enterprises have across many different industries, particularly ones that require things like low latency. I also think there are some security benefits of some of the things that could be delivered in that environment too. One of the things that we hear increasing demand for is the ability to do fully private networks for all of the security reasons that you brought up. I know there's a lot of CIOs that today are challenged by the fact that a lot of their enterprise traffic, in a world where people are in the office, a lot of their enterprise traffic, the enterprise traffic that comes through their WAN system through Wi-Fi, they have control of, they have visibility of, they have policy management on. But increasingly, employees are coming in with these and they're consuming enterprise resources in mobile, and CIOs have very little control over that, visibility and policy control over it. And I think it's one of the things that's driving demand for private networks. And I think that will be one of the first early use cases that defines 5G, is the ability to take carrier licensed spectrum or maybe unlicensed spectrum like CBRS and create these private network environments in the enterprise so that all traffic coming from everywhere, CIOs will have more control over.
I thought that was an interesting question coming from a media, Shadrach's at Sesame Workshop, coming from somebody in media, and maybe Jacques, you have a thought on that too, but that there's a particular need for media to have a hybrid system or redundancies or some, more security than other types of industries, because everything lives online.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Mike, one of the things for us and the gaming industry in a whole is, having access to edge compute and putting workloads right at the edge, extremely close to consumers, is I think a game changer. Just because of the latency gains that you will get just doing that. So that's going to be huge, not just for gaming, but various different industries being able to utilize that and having edge compute very close to consumers is going to be massive.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think gaming, I think telepresence is another one kind of similar to gaming that experientially will really benefit from low latency that comes through the combination of 5G and pushing compute power to the edge. Because again, it's another experience that we've all had when we've been on conferences like this, where even though ISPs have gotten a lot better, we still have this this experience where people end up talking over each other, and where this environment isn't quite like being in the office when you're trying to actually do productivity sessions. So I think gaming, telepresence are two areas that are certainly going to be early winners because of the edge and the low latency capabilities of 5G networks.
Is 5G going to make it that much more complicated for security reasons, though?
I don't think the technology in and of itself is. The technology itself, the way it's delivered through carrier networks, is incredibly secure. It meets all DoD standards and stuff like that. I think some of the challenges will be the end application and endpoints that get enabled. I think about things like one of the benefits of 5G is it's much more spectral efficient. It allows networks to be created that have much more capacity. And one of the things that will enable are things like real massive deployments of IoT, where you've got not dozens but thousands and thousands of simultaneous connections. And I think it's those endpoints that today are not connected that become connected, where maybe some of the biggest future security concerns will lie, because that's the place where oftentimes intruders and hackers come in. So it's not the technology itself, but I think it will be some of these endpoints that get enabled through the technology that I think will be some of the early concerns.
It's interesting. Do you think that the IoT vendors, or the vendors of those products, are you working with them to try to make them less vulnerable? So I think about, I'm here at home, although I am on an Ethernet connection right now. I do have, a speaker that's a wireless, it's on a hub, and I have, lights that I control with that speaker.
Yeah, I would say yes, and yes and no. I think there are some people that are more sophisticated in this space, or people that were already doing a lot of development in IoT pre-5G, and they're a little bit further along. I think the hyperscalers are further along in providing some solutions that create endpoint security. But just like in the 4G world, over the next couple of years, I think you're going to see this huge exponential increase in development community building on 5G, which will bring a lot of new people in, which could create some vulnerabilities if not managed appropriately.
Interesting. How are you keeping your staff sort of intact? I think we're all starting to realize that this is not going to end anytime soon, and I'm wondering if that is changing the thought process on development and how you deploy things. At Activision, are people, thinking about changing up?
No, it's honestly, it's been, we thought this was going to be like maximum 3 months, and now it's, we're getting into a much longer time frame. I think the first couple of months was very tactical of like, okay, we need to get all these things done to make sure everybody is productive across the business. But now it's more about making sure that we provide a good onboarding experience for new starters, making sure that everybody has the tools to collaborate effectively, but also making sure that we run the business from an operational perspective, keeping the lights on, all of those things. And it's become more challenging, but we're using all the SaaS tools and everything you can imagine to make sure that the teams are working efficiently, productively, etc. And we're getting better and better at that. I think there are some things that are challenging just because people are getting Zoom fatigue. There's meetings upon meetings, etc. All those things are challenging, and we're finding new ways to deal with that and make sure that people are engaged and don't burn out. But yeah, we're learning as we go. I think everybody is.
Yeah, all building the plane while we're flying it. Guys, thanks so much. I've learned quite a bit here this afternoon.
Thank you, Bertha, and thanks to you, Jacques, and thank you, Mike, and to T-Mobile for Business for sponsoring the conversation. So 3:35, we will be back on the main stage for our final session of the day with Michael Ellison from codepath.org. Please join us there at 3:35, and thank you both for the conversation, and thanks for coming to the TEC Summit.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right.
Bye, guys.